Well, hello there and welcome back to my channel. Today we're having another look at this guy here. It's the 4-inch long-range Roma frame from Diatone. Now, there's a video be appearing here where I just opened the box and had a look at the parts and discussed the actual frame itself, but now I've done the complete build and I think you agree. It's looking very, very smart, very nice. Nice frame, went together quite straightforwardly. No major issues. If you built frames before, you shouldn't have too much trouble with this. You might need to follow the instructions, and they were very, very good instructions, but you shouldn't really have any issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to just look at the parts, give a brief overview of that. Then we're going to discuss the frame itself and how things are got together, things perhaps that I would change, things that I'm happy with, a few bits and pieces like that. Then we'll look at some battery options that you could use with this guy. And obviously we want to think about what camera we could put on here, and then get some weight measurements, because that's really, really important and vital with these frames. You can see when you use these parts the weights that you're going to get, depending on the batteries that you're using, the Lipos or lithium ion, and if you're putting a full-size GoPro, or whether you're trying to save some weight in different places. So we're going to go through that in this video. So it might be a bit of a longer video, but if you sort of skip ahead if you want to, that's fine. Those sort of bits of the weight are going to come towards the end of the video. Not any flight footage, unfortunately, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm based in the UK and it really just is rainy, wet and miserable and not good flying weather. We're beginning of February now, and yeah, I might be able to get this to fly by the end of the month, but we'll see on the circumstance. And that also is linked to the other circumstance that we're under at the moment, which is lockdown for obvious reasons, and that kind of affects when and where you can fly and things like that. So unfortunately I'm not going to do any flying in this particular video, but that will come in the future. We're just going to have a look at the quad itself. So what parts have we used then? Let's have a look. On the front we've got a little nano camera and a little adapter there, and it's nicely protected. Pop out the way so you can see that, hopefully, if it focuses. Nicely protected in case of a crash. Just a little box here. I think it's the Razor camera, but obviously a 19mm or a 14mm camera fits in there nicely, or 20mm if we go in digital HD. So that's connected to our VTX, which is, I think it's the Triangle D machine, and that has a DVR in it, and very nice, very straightforward, in a Whoop style, so it will fit on the Whoop mounting option, which is where we've gone here. We've gone for the Whoop mounting option, which is these 4 screws here. We could have done a 20x20 stack if we went for these 4 screws there, but we haven't. We've gone for this little Whoop board. It's an all-in-one board from Gemku. Focus. It's 35 amp, I believe, ESC. A flight controller, just an F4, quite straightforward. Featured in a previous video, appearing helpfully now. But yeah, nice little board. Hopefully you should have no problems with that. Gemku, a budget brand definitely, but hopefully should be okay. And we've got a capacitor on the back there, just to try to keep some of the electrical noise down and smooth out the picture, hopefully. So what else have we got on here? On the back we can see, hopefully if I turn it that way, you can see our receiver, and it's the Immersion RC Ghost receiver, the Zepto I think it's called, and that just curls around nicely, the antenna for that, and then fits into this 3D printed part on the back here. Now this is designed to hold crossfire, but it holds a little QT antenna there very nicely, keeps it away from the frame, and hopefully you see that we shouldn't have any issues with range. Horizontal is not the best, but it should give us at least a reasonable range, but not the most range that it could give us. And above that we've got the BM180. It's our GPS receiver, also not really the best option, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to be doing things like return to home with this. I just want to get some coordinates for the GPS and maybe a home direction arrow, go too far away so I don't get lost on the way back to me. And above that then we have just a GEP RC sort of generic antenna, like a little lollipop antenna, with this sort of carbon tube which fits nicely onto the 3D printed part here. You couldn't really use like an SMA connector for that. We have to use something like this, or if we're using digital HD, well obviously those antennas are designed like this, which is really what this is designed for. The fact that you've got 20mm sort of spacing at the front, and when you put the camera in you kind of squeeze the aluminium there to kind of hold it together. means this is really designed for a digital system, and you've even got the 20x20 mounting option on the back of the frame to put a little Caddx Vista or something like that in there, depending on what products are available now and in the future, but who knows when it comes to DJI products. So there we go, quite straightforward, the frame itself. We just have some HQ, I think they're the 4035 props on here, on the motors, and these motors are the Mamba branded, they're the Toka motors, so very nice branded motors, 1606, hopefully you can see that there, 3750 kV. So quite a straightforward build, nothing too complicated. So there we are. So what about things that I like, things that I don't like? Well, as I said, it went together very nicely. We've got plenty of mounting options. Goes together really well. The hardware is really nice. The 3D printed parts are really nice. No issue there. Obviously, we can put Crossfire, or we could put Immersion RC Ghost on there, and perhaps even Tracer. We could put one of the Tracer antennas on there, maybe another one perhaps at the front, something like that, or on an arm. They kind of spread out and get better reception. So that's really nice. It's going quite well. Frame, obviously, because we're using, say, a 19mm width camera here, and this is really designed for 20mm. If you were to put, say, these sort of aluminium standoffs on the base plate, and then sort of tighten down the camera, it kind of pulls these together. So if you're trying to put then the top plate on, that can cause you problems. So what I would suggest is you put the camera on, but loosely, don't sort of tighten it up, put the top plate on, and then tighten the camera down. And that is holding it really nicely, that's not going anywhere. So that's really nice, and obviously we get a lot of protection, and we can adjust our camera back if we have a longer lens, so we're happy with that. When we're mounting these 12mm mounting pattern motors over here, obviously it does 9mm mounting pattern motors as well, we can only use 3 of the 4 screws in the bottom of the motor, and perhaps if they milled that out, that would weaken the arm too much, so they decided not to have that 4th screw hole there. So just be aware of that you've only got 3 screw holes on here and not 4. But we're going to be doing smooth flying with this. We're not going to be bando ripping with this particular frame. Not what it's designed for, not at all. So there's that to consider. Now the motors, well, they're very nice motors, feel very smooth. I've not had a chance to fly it yet, but they're, to be honest, a little bit of a pointless size nowadays. If you wanted more flight times but good handling, well, you'd go for a 1404. If you wanted more power, well, there's the new 2004 size motors, and they're really, really good motors. Very, very versatile, especially for sort of lightweight systems where you want to try and conserve your ampage as much as possible. So these motors, whilst good motors undoubtedly, kind of fall into a bit of a, say, pointless sort of area. So people will find uses for them, but there are motors out there that perhaps you might want to favour before going to these motors, and I believe there's a Toka branded 2004 that you could use if you wanted to go with the same brand, and there's plenty more out there, both budget ones and more expensive. I've gone for an XD60 on this, not an XD30, just because of the batteries that I'm thinking about using, the Lipos and the lithium ion I want to use. We can easily just put an adapter on there to adapt it down to an XD30 if we want to. So there we go, a nice build. So let's now have a look at the weight of it and some battery options that we could use, and we'll get some ideas about using perhaps a GoPro with it as well. So let's have a look at that now. So we have our trusty kitchen scales. So let's get a weight of this without a battery. We can hopefully put that on there. And 189 grams. Now let's try some Lipos with it just to see if we can get an idea. So the lightest one that I've got here is a 4S, obviously. This is the FPV. It's from Unmanned Tech Shop. Obviously there'll be all links for all these products in the description below if you want to use those links. So this is a 550 milliamp 4S. It's one of my smallest 4Ss that I've got. And even with that, we're pushing over the 250 grams, sort of minimum for regulations and things like that, certainly around the world and certainly in the UK as well. So we could save some weight if we weren't going to run it with a HD camera on it, with a GoPro or something. We could take that off, and that might save us the 6 grams that we need. We could use a thinner battery strap. We could try and cut down on the weight. Obviously this is an XT30, not an XT60. So if we change that to an XT30 instead, use maybe a thinner grade of cable from the all-in-one flight controller, we could save those grams down and find ourselves with 250 or 249 gram frame build. But we haven't gone with that in this option, mostly because I want to run this with an HD camera as well. So that's Lipo there. Next up we have quite a popular 4S. It's a Tattoo. It's a 650 4S, and that is coming in at about the same weight, actually, 256. It's interesting. You know, they don't really feel the same sort of weight. Well, there you go. Not quite sure what's going on there as to why these are about the same, but 257. Oh, okay, maybe a gram heavier. The inaccurate kitchen scales, which is why we don't use them very often. So there we go, 257. Next up then, well, this has an XT60. This is an R-line Tattoo, once again, 850 4S. Slightly older ones, the version 1. There are newer ones available. Let's try that with the weight, 290 grams now. So that's probably the sort of the Lipo size you might want to use with this sort of more often. This sort of 850 4S should do quite nicely. But we can move up in weight now to something perhaps to give us some longer flight times. We've got these two Lipos here, which are pretty much the same. The Fun Fly from Tattoo, 1300 mm 4S, and the Ovonic, 1300 mm 4S. The similarities, I mean, to be honest, I think they're probably made in the same factory and just rebranded, but I don't know that for certain, so I'm just speculating there. But they're very similar. So let's get the Ovonic, if we can find a place to put that. 349 grams, and one size, and 339 grams, so a bit lighter. 339, so 10 grams more with this Lipo here, interestingly enough. So that's probably going to be quite good. We can mount it sort of sideways to not interfere with the frame at all, and the flow of the props and everything else. We can mount it like that, kind of overshadows a little bit. So we can mount it like that, and we should get reasonably good flight times with this particular Lipo 1300 milliamp. But I might be using this, so we'll put this to one side for our sort of final weigh-in, as it were. And then our final battery here. This is a lithium ion pack 4S from Allline, or I think Gold Line, perhaps. Anyway, let's put that down there and see what weight we can get. 384 grams, so heavier again. So we'll put that to one side as well. So let's say we're going to run it with 850, 291. Then we're going to run it with a GoPro, aren't we? Because we've got a mounting option. We could run it with other cameras, perhaps a naked GoPro or something like that, but I haven't got one of those. So I'd have to use this cage that comes with the GoPro. Normally I like to use the Ethics face hugger to protect my GoPros. These are very, very good. But in this case, obviously, it won't fit in with this particular case that comes with all GoPros when you buy one. Even as this one is a refurbished one, you still get one of these cases. So we'll put that on there, get in our weight, and then we have our GoPro here. It's got an Ethics ND filter on the front, so it's extra weight on this particular camera. Now we've got to find a place to put it. So it's feeling like a game of Buckaroo. There we are, 436 grams. Not light by any stretch of the imagination, but we've got all the parts that we want. So if we want to swap out for our bigger Lipo, 484, and as I said before, we were 436, and then from 436 to a really big battery, 530. That is very heavy, but I don't think we get great flight times with that. So let's stick with our smaller Lipo now for some options that we're going to go for. So we'll put that back on there, 436. Remember that, because we're going to try one of these guys here. Now this is a very clever little gadget you can buy online. It's a little USB-C, and that then connects to the balance lead, and this will power our GoPro directly from our battery. So obviously it takes voltage from the battery, but it means we can take the battery out of the GoPro. So let's do that now, and then we'll get some weights. Right, we've taken out this little cover here. So we've got the uncovered side that just sort of unclips, quite straightforward, very easy. And we've taken out our battery as well. A lot of people take these out anyway to charge them, so we don't have to worry about that. Quite easy as well. We could take this bottom cover off as well if we wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. So let's put the camera back on there. 407, and with our little adapter there, 413. So 407 without it, 413 grams. And remember, if we put these on, 435, 436. So we can see the weight difference just by taking those two parts away. It's not a naked GoPro by any stretch of the imagination, but we're saving that extra weight, so that should improve our flight times, and it means that I don't have to destroy my GoPro, taking it all apart, and I can still use it, and then I can put it in my 5-inch quads and everything else on my Cinewook nicely as it is with the Lipo in it, and I can also then use it for, you know, other filming and things like that, in cases and other things like the face I could design for it. So there we are, that's all the parts and bits and pieces. Let's just, for your records, put the 1300 milliamp 460, and then finally put on 504. So we're saving weight, whether we're using lithium ion or 1300 milliamp, or we're using the 850 milliamp, which I think probably I'll try first of all and see what sort of flight times we get out of the system. So there you go. As you said, unfortunately we can't do any flight footage. A bit annoying this time of year, but it's UK in the winter. It's rainy, it's wet, it's miserable, we've got short days. But spring will be around the corner soon, and we can do some flying with this and hopefully get some really nice flight footage out of our 4-inch long range Diatone quad. Thanks so much for watching my content. I really appreciate it. If you want to, click that like button, give it a thumbs up, that would be really helpful. Really appreciate that. Also, if you want to as well, it's up to you, maybe click that subscribe button. I don't make too much content, but hopefully what I do make is at least useful for you and gives you some information that you can use then with information from other sources to make your own mind up, and that's the important thing in the end. Getting that information when you're working in this hobby or enjoying this hobby. Work is enjoyment. Remember that in the end, it's for fun. So thanks so much for watching, really appreciate your continued support, and perhaps I'll catch you in a video in the future. Take care now, and happy flying if the weather's suitable for it.